Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Erato's Désiré-Émile Inghelbrecht box. Who, you might ask? Well, Inghelbrecht was a major guy. He really was, believe it or not. There's 16 CDs here. Some of his recordings were reissued on Testament, particularly recordings of Debussy and Fauré. He was a friend of Debussy, and he was particularly authoritative as a Debussy conductor. He really was. I mean, he did wonderful, wonderful stuff. The problem with these performances, which include the ones that Testament reissued, is that the orchestras that he had to work with in the 50s and 40s and 30s when he was recording were not of the best, let's face it. Especially like the French Radio Orchestra immediately after the war and whatnot. They were iffy. And the playing takes a little getting used to. You have to simply adapt to it. Once you do that, the performances are quite interesting for their historical and idiomatic authenticity, for sure. There's also an Inghelbrecht box, I think it's about 8 CDs. I have it down in the overflow room, that Naive issued of live stuff, where the playing is generally better and the sound is quite good. But that's long gone. But I just wanted to mention the fact that it exists. And maybe someday we can talk about that. In the meantime, there are, oh, look, it's Finster. Yes. So in the meantime, there are 10 discs or 9 discs of LP era stuff and 5 discs of 78 RPM era stuff, all very effectively remastered. And we're just going to go through it and see what's here. There's a lot of Debussy. Let's put it that way. Let's see. First we have the bookie, the booklet. Oh, the booklet actually has a track listing. Thank God. What are you doing over there, Finster? Okay. Well, here. Oh my. We'll see what happens until she flees, which will probably happen rather shortly. Okay. So what have we got? The LP era. Berlioz, Roman Carnival, Damnation of Faust, excerpts, the usual orchestral sniglets. The Faust ballet music by Gounod, Bizet's Carmen orchestral suite, the Gounod Faust Prelude Act 5 and Interlude Act 2 Vals, Delibes, Lacme, entr'actes, and ballet music from Act 2. These are with the London Philharmonic, actually. Oh my gosh, yes, and not very cheesy. They didn't sound so hot either, by the way, back then. And the Orchestra du Théâtre des Champs-Élysées. Oh, that's fun. Actually, it's fun to hear some of these earlier French orchestras, seedy as they sounded, and they did. Right, Finster? Yeah, I know. There we go. Okay. Back to business here. Disc 2. Lalo, the Symphony Espagnole with a D.V. Early violin. All 5 movements of it, by the way. Ugh, it drives me crazy. The Rhapsody Norvégienne, which is much more fun, thank God. And the Peer Gynt suites with the Champs-Élysées Orchestra and the London Phil in the Lalo. But the Champs-Élysées people are doing the Grieg, which is lots of fun. And you have Claudie Mas-Michel, soprano in Solveig's song and the Grieg Peer Gynt suites. So those are different. That's going to be interesting. Fabulous disc of Fauré, CD3. Shylock, Pélias et Mélisande, the Requiem, and the Cantique de Jean Racine, with Champs-Élysées Forces and the French Radio and Television Choir, which is also kind of, but what the heck. They are beautiful, beautiful, wonderfully sensitive performances. Now we've got Debussy. Boatloads of Debussy. You ready? Nocturnes, Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, March Écossaise, La Mer, Iberia, La Demoiselle Élue. That's fun. The Noël des Enfants qui n'ont plus de maison, for soprano and orchestra. Haven't heard that in a while, have we? Orchestrated by Inghelbrecht himself. L'Enfant Prodigue, the cantata. So that's all rather nicely done, actually. The Demoiselle Élue is beautiful. Let's see, who else have we got? And we've got a bunch of soloists. We don't have to get into it. They're fine. Le Martyr de Saint-Sébastien. That's up here as well, with André Falcon, Claudine Collard. I mean, it's got the whole thing. Let's just leave it at that. 29 tracks, 62 minutes worth. Then we've got Je, the Gigue and Ronde de Printemps from Image. Trois Chansons de Charles d'Orléans. Trois Ballades de François Villon, with Freda Betty and Bernard Plante. These are fun to hear for a lot of these French soloists who most of you won't know. I certainly didn't. And they really have again, it's a question of, idiomatic approach to the use of the language, and it's lovely to hear. Ravel, Daphnis and Chloe, complete with the Orchestre du Théâtre des Champs-Élysées. Yay. I mean, most of this stuff is mono, by the way, just so you know. And more Ravel, Mother Goose ballet excerpts. Ravel, Rhapsody Espagnole, Un Barque sur l'Océan, and Inghelbrecht's own work, The Nursery, La Nursery, orchestral version. That's CD 9. So now we get the 78s. But the LPs, I mean, it's basically Fauré, Debussy, Ravel, and some other things. Grieg, that's fun. Carmen, but the French stuff. And these things sound so different from what you're probably used to. So it's worth hearing. They're definitely worth hearing. CD 10, Bizet, Carmen. Oh, when were these recorded? Do they give dates? No. Why should they give dates? All right, but these were all 78. So let's just leave it at that. We've got the Pas de Loup Orchestra. Wow, baby. Carmen Orchestral Suites, and let's see, L'Arlésienne Suites 1 and 2, and Patrie Overture with Jules Viard, saxophone, Gaston Crunel, flute, the Association Chorale Pas de Loup, and the Orchestra Pas de Loup, and also the Grand Orchestre des Festivals Debussy. I mean, it's just historic, very historic. Debussy, Petite Suite, March Écossaise, Nocturnes, and excerpts from the Martyrdom of Saint Sebastian, and Ravel's Mother Goose, the orchestral version of the original Cinq Pièces Enfantines, the piano works. And this is with the Pas de Loup Orchestra mostly, and also the Grand Orchestre des Festivals Debussy in tracks 6 through 9, the Nocturnes and the Martyrdom of Saint Sebastian. CD 12, Berlioz, Roman Carnival, Delibes, Lacme, ballet music, Chabrier, Joyeuse Marche, Habanera, and Le Roi Malgré Lui, the Danse Slave and Fête Polonaise, Fauré's Masque et Bergamasque for solo, chorus, and orchestra, Ducasse, Sorcerer's Apprentice. Ooh, they are straining at that, but what the heck. And the fanfare to precede La Péri. Peer Gynt, Suite number 1. Evidently, Inghelbrecht really liked Peer Gynt. And Robert Vollstedt, who lived from 1854 to 1919. The Jolly Brothers Waltz. Okay. Again, with the same people as before. We don't have to worry about it. And sometimes the orchestra is completely anonymous on these 78s. Oh, now we get into the juicy international stuff, and that is fun. First, we begin with that great French composer, Richard Wagner, Tristan and Isolde, the Prelude and Liebestod, and then Till Eulenspiegel's Merry Pranks in Borodin, in the steppes of Central Asia, and the Polovtsian dances, The Flight of the Bumblebee by Korsakov from Tsar Sultan, Lyudov's 8 Russian folk songs, and Inghelbrecht's own Fête Enfantine. It's from the nursery thing. And that's again with the Pas de Loup Orchestra and partly the Orchestre National de la Radiodiffusion Française. That's only in the last work. It's not Radiodiffusion et Télévision yet, because there was no television at the time that this was recorded. Then we've got Inghelbrecht's own music. Isn't that fun? You've got the nursery, the Dernier Nurseries orchestral version. He spent a lot of time in the nursery. Kind of creepy. La Légende des Grands Saint-Nicolas for soprano, baritone, and orchestra. The Sinfonia Brève da Camera, the Autographe de l'Auteur, and Quatre Fanfares. Elsa Barren, 1910 to 1999. Fête des Colonies. Wasn't that politically correct? Isn't that wonderful? A politically correct piece by a politically correct woman composer writing politically incorrect imperialist music. Festival of the Colonies? Ooh, or something like that. Then we've got La Marseillaise on CD 14. Then we've got live recordings. Oh, yes. Isn't that nice? Debussy, Printemps, La Demoiselle Élue, Afternoon of a Faun, the Nocturnes, and the Trois Ballades de François Villon. Those are live. And last, La Mer, Image, and Je. Oh, these were the ones that are actually in that other, Naive box. I didn't even notice that. Now that I think about it, look at that. So these are really sort of better than the studio ones, but you'll listen and you'll decide for yourself. It's a really wonderful historical tribute to a serious major conductor. Now, I do want to say one other thing about Inghelbrecht. He was quite helpful in my vibrato researches because he talks about it. In one of his articles, he published quite a bit, actually, of sort of, things. And one of the things he said, he wrote in 1949, and this is the part of the video dedicated to Francois Xavier Roth and all those other jerks, doing these stupid authenticity things from the beginning of the 20th century without vibrato. He says, this means of expression, he's talking about vibrato, would otherwise be efficient if employed with more moderation, especially by celli and double bass players who abuse it immoderately. For example, transition from piano to pianissimo may be most perfectly achieved by simply cutting out the vibrato, and vice versa, unquote. So, in the first half of the 20th century, as we all know, they were using vibrato all over the place, immoderately, according to Inghelbrecht, and could have been used more sensitively at lower dynamic levels, which gives you a sense of what vibrato was useful for, number one, and number two, what he encountered. So, people who spend their time listening to crotchety old recordings going, oh, I don't hear the vibrato. I don't know what they're doing. And then they try and duplicate that horrible sound. They're on drugs. They are delusional. It's just wonderful. So I like Inghelbrecht for that reason as well. But anyway, for historical fans of French music, this is essential. Keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.